The next item was PB-14, Brenda Alberts, termination, City of Albuquerque Animal Welfare Department, recommendation of the hearing officer, and city's objection to the recommendation of the hearing officer, Pat Bingham. The court will entertain a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that that we accept the recommendation of the hearing officer and the report and the findings and conclusions of the hearing officer, subject to the following modifications: that the board adopt as its proposed findings of fact 16 and 17,
Those are the city's
which were proposed by the City of Albuquerque in their proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law, submitted to the hearing officer. And I'll read those. The city's proposed finding of fact, number 16, is: in lieu of termination, the city offered a mutual agreement of disciplinary action and training, a settlement agreement which would have required that grievant acknowledge her faults, serve a 30-day suspension without pay, and attend diversity sensitivity training, after which grievant would have been allowed to return to work at the city. That's proposed finding of fact number 16. Proposed finding of fact number 17 is that grievant rejected this agreement and refused to take responsibility for her actions. I propose that we adopt those as the board's findings of fact to supplement the findings of fact made by Mr. Bingham in his report, and I also propose that we adopt the following additional conclusion of law. On the basis of our additional findings of fact, the board concludes that the grievant invited upon herself the costs associated with diversity sensitivity training, mental health evaluation, and mental health treatment as recommended by the hearing officer in his recommendation. And I further move that we adopt the alternative recommendation submitted by counsel for the city. Their alternative recommendation is that in the event that the grievant is reinstated, and I'm proposing that she be reinstated and be given a 60-day suspended suspension, unpaid suspension, as recommended by Mr. Bingham, and that also that we accept the city's recommendation that that the board order that grievant assume responsibility for all costs associated with diversity sensitivity training, mental health evaluation, and mental health treatment described herein, and that the board order that the city receive periodic status reports from grievance mental health treatment providers verifying grievance compliance with treatment, and for any other relief that the board deems just and within its purview. So in summary, I am moving that we adopt findings of fact 16 and 17, proposed findings of fact 16 and 17 as our own, and that we adopt the additional conclusion of law that I read into the record, and that we accept the city's alternative recommendation.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Vote carries. Okay, we've already decided we have nothing under item 9. Vote to close the meeting pursuant to section 10-15-1, paren H, paren 2, paren limited personnel matters, and 10-15-1, paren H, paren 7, paren threatened or pending litigation. The chair moves for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Item 11. I'm sorry?
What? Item 11. Oh, you're right.
You have public comments.
Vote to close the public comments.
Are we back on the record?
Well,
Recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go back on the record.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
My apologies.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that problem last time I was here. I believe you asked the city attorney to do your resolution off the record that you talked about earlier today. But anyway,
don't believe so. It's in the
nonetheless, yes, my name is Charles Harrison, and I'm basically a photojournalist, citizen, and I do records, investigations, and different types of things. The independent hearing officers, I've been trying to film their meetings, and I've been locked out. And I believe that these meetings are subject to the Open Meetings Act, and therefore I've filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office. Now, I've done some other investigating, and I've discovered that in 2012, September of 2012, the City Council saw fit to make the hearing officers truly independent, and they established a city ordinance in September of 2012. Slightly thereafter, I believe it was in October of 2012, the city administration had gone through a request for proposal. They submitted an executive committee summary, whatever you want to call it, to the city council, and the city council voted and accepted the 4 hearing officers that you currently have to a 2-year contract. That contract ended in October. Now, in February of 2014, October of last year, 2014, in February of 2014, without going back to the city council, which is written into the ordinance for retention, the administration gave those 4 hearing officers a 6-month extension until the end of last month. So the last 6 months that these hearing officers have been operating is in question as to if they were truly legally under contract without approval of the city council, which is written into the ordinance, which is, I believe, law. Now, today we have hearing officers who are not under contract scheduled to have hearings by the city clerk's office. I believe Mr. Harada is the administrator of hearings. And like I said, these 4 hearing officers have no contracts. There has been no generation of a request for proposal, or there has been no executive committee write-up to send to the city council for their consideration, and there has been no sign-off by the president of the city council or the city clerk of new contracts for these 4 hearing officers. Now, I have asked over and over again for this information, and I've been told it doesn't exist, and that the request for proposal is currently in the, I believe, finance department, not finance, purchasing department. So the request for proposal hasn't even gone out to bid. Yet we have hearing officers being scheduled to have hearings. As a matter of fact, one is scheduled for tomorrow and Friday. So I don't know if you all are aware of this, what's going on, but there's some serious issues here, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. The city council's well aware of it, and my understanding is they're looking into it, but I don't know if they've spoken with you all about it or not, but there's some serious issues going on here. Now, the other thing is, I believe, Mr. Holland?
Correct.
You just spoke about a case that was heard before hearing officer Bingham, and you all accepted some of his recommendations in that case. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's on the record.
Correct.
We did.
Correct. So if you accepted recommendations from a hearing officer, those hearings are subject to the Open Meetings Act, and I get to walk in them and I get to video record. End of story. So I would suggest that you start talking to some people and you get this squared away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Now, Chair moves for adjournment.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.